Welcome in to the Dynasty Brews podcast. And unfortunately, Joe Pepe is not our guest today. That is an old one. That was my bad on that one. But you have Double J in the house. That's right. Justin and Justin are back to fill up your cup with some good stuff. And Justin, I don't know if you know this, man, but this is our 21st episode. We didn't get to talk about it because we had some good conversation going with Adam and Ryan last week, but we've hit 20 episodes, man. This is kind of cool.
This is pretty good stuff. Just keep it going.
Hell yeah. I mean, I'll probably be saying this all the way at 50 and 100, hopefully. But anyway, I just wanted to say that quick thing and a cheers to 20 episodes.
Yeah, hold on. I got to crack mine open because I didn't even know.
There you go. But anyways, guys, we're going to bring another great episode. This week, we are talking about the AFC South, the wasteland, the abomination that is the AFC South. My God, how are we ever going to make it through a full episode? Well, Justin, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to try. So I'm going to bring up real quick a little breakdowns that we've always been doing. So let's start off with Houston Texans. You bring in good old Marlon Mack, Brandon Cooks. We got Jerry Hughes coming in on the defensive side. They added Derek Stingley Jr., Kenyon Green, Pete from Baylor, Dameon Pierce, and John Mechie II. Justin, now I'm going to throw this to you real quick because I've got some opinions on this. I just came off a podcast talking about the Texans.
All right.
So what do you see for the Texans this year? I know you're a huge Davis Mills mark. You're big on him.
I was big on him last year. I think that we'll get into Davis Mills in a second. Sorry.
Well, I mean, let's talk about this. We're in a Devy league, and we've pretty much traded him back and forth.
Yeah, so I traded him away at first. Because I'm in a win now mode, or I thought I was. And then I thought Mills would be a good piece for you going forward. And then as this Deshaun Watson legal situation lingered, I was like, well, things are not looking good over here for winning now. And so I decided to trade back for him. You know, it's kind of the thing with Mills is he's got the talent. I just don't love the situation still. He's got Cooks. I think a lot of people are just penciling Cooks inside the top 24 because he's done that historically, but there is a drop off coming probably, and that could be as early as this season. You know, if defenses start keying in on Brandon Cooks, I think the Moneyball guy to get in this offense is actually secretly Marlon Mack, who is the offseason addition. Mack was a stud in Indianapolis until he ruptured his Achilles. If you're going to sit here and tell me that Cam Akers can come back from his injury and still be a top 10 asset, then all right, fine. I don't really love Cam Akers, but if you think he can do it, then why can't Marlon Mack do it? I mean, Marlon Mack was very good in Indianapolis for a couple years. He's coming into with little competition. I think he's shown us the most out of that offense. It's a question of health at this point. So I think we're going to see a bigger piece of the running game this season than we did last season, where, you know, you had Sexy Rexy as their main running back down the stretch. So, that's just kind of where I see it. So Davis Mills, to me, you know, the reason why I like him is I think he's got all the talent in the world. The question is going to be is how many games are they going to win next season?
Yeah, no, 100%. And just to talk about your Marlon Mack thing, you know, before he ruptured his Achilles, he went for 1,000 yards. He had 8 touchdowns. And then the year prior, he had 900 yards and 9 touchdowns. So you're right. He has been viable in the past. And he is somebody to really look at, you know, because when it gets down to it, you know, he's in the mix with, you know, guys that are backups. You know, he's in that range with Isaiah Spiller. As I look right now on ECR, he is, let's see. You know, Dameon Pierce is going at 48 and he's going at 54. And I think a lot of that is the rookie buzz. Like, everybody wants to get the new hot flavor of the month. But you're absolutely right. Until Marlon Mack, you know, proves that he can't play anymore, Dameon Pierce is not going to have a full load on this offense. And they're going to probably give them equal shares of this offense in the first couple games and see who handles it better and give that person the workload. So there's a very real chance that Marlon Mack gets his shot. And when you're looking at, like I said, RB54, we're looking at Khalil Herbert, Donta Foreman, Tyler Algier, Darrell Williams, Rashad White. These are the guys that are around him. None of these guys have a legit chance right now to be number one, except for maybe Tyler Algier. But that's a whole different story for the NFC South.
Yeah. You're talking about a guy that, averaged in 2019, 2018. He averaged 12 points a game in 2018. Or in 2019, he was 12 points a game. In 2018, he was 13.4. That's a
Yeah.
very solid RB2 number. And then, he had that one game in 2020 where he ruptured his Achilles, and then, we saw the breakout of Jonathan Taylor. So he's had time.
Yep.
This is a great situation, and really probably one of the best offseason trade targets if you're looking for a cheap running back addition.
Yeah, and one thing that we're not talking about too much is that the Houston Texans have gotten better. I mean, Laramie Tunsil is healthy. They've still got I think his name's Titus Howard, and they've got Kenyon Green, who they just brought in from the draft. So they're getting better on the line, and they're going to be running the ball because Davis Mills can't be relied on to do all the work with his arm. He's just not that kind of a quarterback right now. So definitely there's an option for them. I got a quick question for you. Would you take a flyer on Dameon Pierce right now? No. If he was there in the back end of the second round? Really? See, I would.
I'm all in on Marlon Mack this season. I really think Marlon Mack's the starter. I think we get all hot and heavy over these running backs that go late in drafts. And statistically, the odds just aren't on your side. You're looking at the back of round 2. If you're looking for a guy at the back of round 2, go ahead and give me what's the rookie's name in Indianapolis? He usually tends to fall
Pierce.
right around that. Yeah, give me Pierce in Indianapolis, not Dameon here.
Not Dameon. You want Alec.
Yeah.
No, I mean, see, I'll agree with you. Alec Pierce does have a high upside. If I'm really struggling at running back, though, I'm not afraid of Dameon Pierce maybe not getting all the touches right away.
Why settle for this Pierce character when you could just get Tyler Beatty in the third, who's already shown his stuff off in the OTAs in Baltimore?
You could easily get Tyler Beatty in the fourth and get get Dameon Pierce too. Tyler Beatty is an NFC or an AFC North topic, which we will get to. That whole rotation right there is, for lack of a better words, a cluster F.
You don't think this is going to, you're talking about a cluster. We don't even know who the starting running back is. I'm sitting here saying Marlon Mack. You're over here telling me Dameon Pierce. For all we know, Adrian Peterson will sign like the week before the season and come out and just ball out somehow.
The real winner here is going to be Sexy Rexy in week 16 and 17, winning your championships for you. Book it. 2 touchdowns against the Chargers.
I would love to see Todd Gurley or Adrian Peterson just come here. It won't happen because it doesn't make any sense in the world, but it'd be pretty hilarious.
I love Todd Gurley, but they'd have to wheel him in.
He's fine with that as long as you pay him. Every man has his price.
Well, let's talk about Brandon Cooks. How highly are you regarding Brandon Cooks in this year's draft? I mean, I don't know where you've been drafting him. If you've been drafting him, I see him as somebody who's still sliding in a lot of drafts. So talk about him real quick. I'm going to pull up his ECR, and then we'll discuss whether you would pick him over the guys around him.
Yeah, you're talking about a guy who's averaged roughly 150 points each of the last 2 seasons. Wide receiver 21 last year, wide receiver 16 the year before. On a per game basis, though, he really has finished RB. He was wide receiver 24 last year and wide receiver 17. So, other than that, I go back and forth. I think we just assume he's going to keep doing what he's doing. But like I said, I think that they're going to try and control the ball more this season, especially with Lovie Smith being the defensive coordinator. I don't think you're going to see the passing attack that we really saw last season. So I'm kind of out of him at his cost. I think people think his cost is too low, but what players are going around him right now in ECR?
So the 4 players going around him, 2 on each side: Cortland Sutton, Jerry Judy, Marquise Brown, and Amari Cooper.
So
So
give me Amari Cooper. Number one on the list, give me Marquise Brown. I think Marquise Brown's in for a hell of a season.
yeah.
I also think Cortland Sutton's in for a hell of a season. So I mean, you give me these four guys, I'm taking those two. So first I'm taking Sutton, then I'm taking Brown, then I'm taking Amari Cooper, and then I'm taking Cooks.
So the only person you're not taking is Judy over Cooks.
Yeah, and I'd probably take Judy over Cooks too. I mean,
Yeah.
Judy's more of a gamble for me. I view Sutton as the upside there. I think Sutton is the best receiver Denver has to offer, and it's not really particularly close for me. But I also think that Marquise Brown's going to ball the crap out this season with Kyler Murray.
See, I love the Sutton and Judy comparison to Lockett and Metcalf because I see it. They're pretty much almost a carbon copy, if not just like a slight downgrade version of those two guys. For me, I look at that and I go, you know what? I think you're right. I think Brandon Cooks could easily be the bottom of those five guys. And it's surprising with ECR, he's at wide receiver 22. I feel like in actual drafts, he's getting disrespected even more because I feel like I'm getting him as like my wide receiver 3 or 4.
That's
And
fine, but
no, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that's something that you could really take advantage of if you're a smart dynasty player. Go out and grab him as your wide receiver 3 and 4 because the field is disrespecting him.
Yeah, for sure. But outside of he's only had 3 seasons outside of the top 75 in the last 8 seasons. So 5 out of 8, in 5 out of his 8 seasons, he's finished in the top 75 overall, which is pretty impressive.
And how many of those seasons were him missing it because of injury?
I don't know about that. I mean, he's played 16 games.
Because he had an ACL injury, I want to say back when he was with
Might have been 2014.
Saints.
Might have been 2014 because that was the only game he had less than 14 games. That was 10 games he had.
Really, that's another thing. I've always assumed he's been more of an injury-prone player, but if he's been playing 16 games
since 2015, 2014 he played 10 games. Since 2015, he's only had 2 seasons where he played less than 16 games, and that was in 2020 and 2019.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So you're also, and it's sometimes you get your finishes because you play in all those games. But to his credit, you look at points per game finishes. He's the biggest outlier is 2018 where he finished on a 21 in terms of points per game, but 13 in terms of positional finish. So,
and here's another thing. We always talk about volume in the fantasy community. He's only had 2 seasons where he didn't finish with at least 110 targets.
Yeah.
So that's also something to take into consideration. Everywhere he goes, he finds some sort of like really strong connection with the quarterback. The quarterback wants to get him the ball, and rightfully so.
I think a lot of people I've noticed are really in on Brevin Jordan too. By the way, what do you make of this? I tend to shrug my shoulders.
He's actually somebody I wouldn't mind. I was just talking about this. He's somebody I wouldn't mind talking about in best ball talk, like back end of a best ball draft, maybe last couple picks. If I have a shot to take, and here's my reasoning: he's a big target for the red zone, right?
Yep.
Davis Mills, when they get to the red zone, most likely not going to be looking Brandon Cook's way. He's going to be looking for somebody who maybe is in single coverage and is 6'2". Brevin Jordan. For me, I look at, this is a guy who could really up his red zone attempts, really up his, from 5 to the goal line, shots, and Davis Mills is going to be looking for that. So, I think he's got that. That's the path that I see. I'm not going to write him into tight end 1 conversation, but as of right now, I have him around tight end 24 to 26. I have him solely at 26, but I could move him up to 24 before the beginning of the year.
So as we sit here today, I find myself only wanting to own Davis Mills as my QB2 in Superflex. I I love Marlon Mack as a late round flyer, but I don't generally love buying into this offense at current cost.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair enough. I mean, at the current cost, you know, like you said, Davis Mills is a good QB2, QB3 for a bye week. Marlon Mack is a good steal because you're going to get him the very end of drafts. And Cooks might be a little expensive. Now that I've seen ECR has him at 22, he might be a little pricey. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is an offense most people want no part of. I think we both can agree on that one. Speaking of an offense nobody
Whoa,
wants any part of.
whoa! That,
Sorry, is the teal and gold really blinding, or
no,
is it
not
the
blind.
fact
No, it's the Jaguars. I mean,
that
if we have people watching us or listening to us like the Jaguars, it'll get better. It'll get better. Statistically, it has to.
well, you know what? At least they have a quarterback, right? At least they have a top
Um,
quarterback.
um,
They paid $20 million to Christian Kirk. Uh, God, I hate them because now we have to pay $30 million to Debo Samuel, being a 49ers fan.
but at least you don't have to pay 30 million to Christian Kirk. I mean that you could you could be like at least Debo's good, right? I mean Christian Kirk's done what has he done in his career?
Talk about setting the world on fire and just watching it burn. The Jaguars did exactly that with giving Christian Kirk $20 million.
Well, I think you mentioned it last week. Like they had to. Like no one wants to play there. Like I can't think of a franchise. I can think of a couple, but I, what do they have to offer? I mean, they just paid this guy who has never finished inside the top 30 on a points per game basis or even as a positional finish. And they
Yeah.
just paid this guy boatloads of cash. I mean, if I could be, he's really every man's dream, right? To get a payday for doing below mediocre type work. I'll-
He's the equivalent of a stay-at-home dad. Like he's the ideal life for a man. I
I
get to just
I
stay
actually
home.
disagree with you because that is not my dream. If I had to do that for a living, I think I'd rather work at McDonald's.
Well, like
And
I
I
said,
love and I love my kids, but I gotta tell you, I could not spend 8 hours. I couldn't spend every single day with them, all day, every day. When their summer breaks and their spring breaks are, that's that good bonding time. The first 2 days, it's great bonding. The last 5 days, it's like, all right, we got to get these kids to school.
send them to camps.
Send them to Jaguars camp.
There you
I'll
go.
feel like overachievers.
At least you know Urban Meyer won't be kicking him this year. It'll just be Doug Peterson running him into a wall.
He'll
But
quit
let's
at halftime.
get down to it. They got Evan Ingram in there, which I actually think is a sneaky play. I think he could have some value this year.
Yeah.
Zay Jones. No, yeah, very
That
weird
man
pickup.
that man might fight for Jesus, but he will not be fighting for my fantasy team.
He will be on the waiver wire all year long.
Yes.
And then some promising things for the running game. Brandon Sheriff, who was probably the best piece of the offensive line of the Washington team, comes in at guard. You re-sign Cam Robinson. It's kind of one of those things where I was like, maybe Evan Neal would have been a better pick, but Jaguar is going to Jaguar.
Bulky and
I was hearing something today. It was on Locked On 49ers pod, and he was talking about bulky and long arms, and I was like, oh,
well,
that's such a weird correlation. But then you think about like guys like Alden Smith, and you're like, oh, he does kind of like have those weird fetishes for long arms, doesn't he? So speaking of long arms, Trayvon Walker.
yeah, I mean, as I look at this page, there is only 2 people that I really want to own. 3. I mean, I'll take the chance on Lawrence. I don't know if I love his cost though. Still a little high for what he showed me last year. I mean, I think he will turn it around, but uh, I'd rather take Wilson in the 5th than I would take Lawrence in the 2nd, to be quite honest. I am all about Mr. Evan Ingram. I have been out on Evan Ingram for the longest time, but listen,
Mhm.
Doug Peterson loves to throw the ball to his tight ends,
Yep.
and it's all about a volume play. It doesn't, I mean, let's put it to me. If you told me that I had to score 100, I had to get 100 points in bowling, right? And you said you can roll the ball 20 times, I could do it. But if you told me I had to roll it 10 times, I probably wouldn't be able to do it. The reason why I said it is because he's going to get all the volume in the world. So he might not
Yeah.
love the play, he might not be super efficient with him, but he's going to get the targets. I mean, when your number one's Christian freaking Kirk, who can't seem to finish inside the top 36 at the position, who are you going to throw the ball to? And then lastly, you
Obviously, Marvin Jones. Obviously.
obviously Lavis, or what about Visca Chenault, that guy that everyone seems to still. I don't know who fantasy Twitter loves more. It's either Visca Chenault or Denzel Mims. Every freaking season, I have to hear about how these guys are sleepers. They're gonna break out. It's like, dude, they're not
I,
gonna break out. They're locked into their role. They're busts. Get over it.
I have a theory that the Denzel Mims stuff coming out is just to like hype up his trade value to get
Yes,
like a second or third round pick out of him.
they're hoping that GMs in the NFL are just as enthusiastic about Denzel Mims as they are.
Yeah. That's why Robert Sala is coming out. Oh, he looks the best he's ever looked ever. You're like, okay, Robert Sala, I'm
So
going to take
now,
offensive advice from you.
so now, so now he, instead of being a flaming bag of crap, he's just crap. And that's kind of where we're at with this.
At
I
least
will
he was hot
say,
when he was flaming.
I will say Denzel Mims probably not hashtag a listener of the show though. So I need to stop being so mean. I'm not trying to be mean, Jaguars fans, but I do love Snoop Connor this season. I think he's a great sleeper. You got, you know, it was funny. I see all these analysts hyping up um Travis, or not ETN. I mean, they can ETN you can hype up, but I found it funny when James when
Robinson.
yeah, when James Robinson was sent out that video showing him like cutting and running, people were like, "Oh, he's gonna be good. He's gonna be back." It's like he freaking ruptured his Achilles. Like,
Yeah.
you need to not expect him to do anything this season. Actually, like, best case scenario for James Robinson is he doesn't play this season. I think you don't want to rush back from an injury. And then is this how many? I don't know how many years are left on his contract, but if you could take a year off and then go sign somewhere next year, I think that'd be better for him in the long run than playing this season in Jacksonville,
It,
which is going to be another rebuilding season.
this might actually be the final year on his contract since he had a UDFA contract.
Yeah, I think it makes more sense for him not to play this season. I really do. Next year, go sign with like the Vikings, who probably won't have Dalvin Cook, I would imagine.
No way. You're giving up on the Alexander Madison experiment so quickly?
Well, Alexander Madison's, this is the final year of his deal. I think he's going to go be a starter for Atlanta next season.
Yeah, so this is the last year in his deal. He signed a 3-year deal with Jacksonville. So
Yeah, I just don't. I know that people love contract years, but there's no way this dude's coming back in the final year of his deal to play on a ruptured Achilles. I
yeah,
would
I mean,
rather I would
yeah,
rather sit out and not look like shit than try and prove everyone that I'm fine and look like shit.
yeah, especially for let's face it, an organization that's been trying to replace you ever since you got here.
Yeah.
So, I would say that's some good advice. Don't fucking come back. Don't rush yourself back for a team that's gonna maybe win 4 or 5 games, and don't go out there and do something to mess up your Achilles again. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean they got Travis Etienne. Snoop Connor will probably fill that role of James Robinson.
He's going to be the goal line back. So I love Snoop in best ball. I don't necessarily love starting him every week, especially considering I don't think this team figures to be in the
Yeah,
red zone very much. But
yeah.
hey,
I wouldn't start him at all. If he deserves a taxi spot, maybe. But at the same
well,
time,
listen, we know how things go, right? I mean, injuries are going to happen. You
yeah.
hope it's not ETN, but I think Snoop Connor is the number two there as we sit here today. Who, I mean, who else is going to get in there over him?
No, yeah. Well, I mean, listen, Doug Peterson's offense is the best offense for a UDFA to come in and play
Yeah.
because he's going to run everybody into the wall.
Yep. He uses that
And
committee approach.
yeah, it's a true committee approach. Like everybody says the 49ers are a committee approach. They're not. Doug Peterson will literally run every single running back he has out there. And nobody will have a clear-cut role. Everybody will have some goal line work, but everybody is going to get some work.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I mean,
I think Snoop Conner has more upside than Dameon Pierce. I really do.
he might. He might. I mean, I think that they're going to fill the same role, and I think that they're going to have the same amount of opportunities. So it's really going to see. Because think about it. Pierce is a huge back who kind of had that role of when you look at him on tape. I remember I look at him as like a bigger Javonte Williams. Like people just seem to bounce off of him, and it's pretty. And he's got some nice hands too. He's a good receiving back too. So listen, we can place a bet.
Are we keeping track of these? We gotta write them down somewhere.
Well, now we got them on audio and video.
I know, but we gotta. I love doing the show, and I do listen to for quality assurance purposes. But I don't know if I want to go listen to every episode to figure out how many beer bets we got going on here. So I'm gonna start keeping track. But what did you have in mind? Because I think that
let's just say higher finish.
Points per game.
Let's say higher finish, minimum of 6 games.
We're doing points per game or total points? Because I'll do total points.
Yeah, let's do total points. I'm down.
Okay, I think Snoop Conner will have more points than Dameon Pierce.
Okay.
All right, put it on the board. All right, so let me tell you this. We haven't seen Travis Etienne be elite, right? But we've seen Marlon Mack be elite, right? Not elite, but I mean, top 24 is a hard thing to do, which I'll talk about later in the episode.
10 yards in 2 seasons where he had over 5 touchdowns. He's not elite, but he was a starter. He was very much a starter in the NFL.
Yeah, and we just haven't seen Etienne in the NFL yet. For all we know, Etienne can get hurt in training camp again. Like, I don't think it'll happen, and I don't wish that on anyone, but like, we haven't seen anything yet. So that's why I think Snoop Conner will get more carries because of the offense he's in. And then carries sometimes leads to taking over a role.
Well, I mean, I obviously it's happened before. I'm not going to doubt it. I'm just going to roll with Travis Etienne. Has a lot of draft capital behind him right now, and I think they're going to give him the most amount of chances as long as he's healthy.
But Etienne was drafted by the same guy that really wished he wanted Kadarius Toney. He kicked a guy one time.
He was also drafted by the same GM that's there too.
We knew who controlled the draft room. When the guy's sitting up there and saying he was heartbroken that they didn't get Kadarius Toney, I was like, oh. By the way, I've never heard of someone say that before. It's like, you get married and you're like, I was just heartbroken. The girl I really wanted to marry was already married, so I
she got taken. She got taken 3 months ahead of time.
I mean, how is that supposed to make your newest draft pick feel? Like, in all seriousness. So I don't know.
Well, like I said, Jaguar is going to Jaguar, so we're going to find out what they do with this entire team. But let's move on from the disgusting and get to the actual interesting. Let's go into the Colts. Last year, second in the division, they have had 4 different quarterbacks now with Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers, and the last year of Andrew Luck. 4 seasons, 4 quarterbacks. Hopefully this one sticks, but he's also 37, I think, going on 38, if I'm not wrong.
Did you mention Mr. Jacoby Brissett? He was there.
Oh, shit. That's right. So 5 in 5 years. Oh, my God. That's right. I forgot about the Jacoby Brissett year.
And Jacoby's about ready to take his legacy and up to Cleveland, it sounds like. So
he went from Indy to Miami to Cleveland. He's just a hired mercenary, man. He goes wherever you need a quarterback.
Yeah, wherever he's on, he's going to start for you, it sounds like.
Steal of the draft right there, Jacoby Brissett. Book it.
He even got Tom Brady suspended, and
Ooh, that's
Jimmy Garoppolo hurt.
no, that's not right.
I mean, to be fair, Jimmy Garoppolo gets hurt cooking his kids breakfast, and I like Jimmy Garoppolo, but the man's got to stay healthy.
He doesn't have kids. He just has a really hot porn star girlfriend. Jimmy GQ. Oh man. Would have he would have been a great fit here, and we would have loved to have taken the Colts 3rd round pick. But alas, they made a smarter decision and got Matt Ryan, a fortified MVP, a bona fide Hall of Famer once he's done. They went out, they also fortified the defense, got Stephon Gilmore and Yannick Ngakoue. Draft additions, we talked about Alec Pierce already. I think he's also probably the better Pierce. Jelani Woods going to be a talented blocker until he can finally catch the ball. Berhard Rahman, another good guard. Andrew Ogletree, interesting. They always love to, like, I don't know what it is about Frank Reich. I mean, just maybe it's coming from that Doug Peterson system, but he just loves having a plethora of tight ends.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got Kyron Granson from last year. He, still has Mo Alley Cox. They just signed him to an extension, and now he adds 2 guys in the draft. Tell me, what do you think about this Colts offense? Do you think that Jonathan Taylor still has the ability to repeat? Do you think Matt Ryan has a QB2 year in him? And, tell me about Michael Pittman and this tight end room.
Yeah, so here's kind of where I'm at. I've been working on this project last week. I do numbers all day, so I sometimes take breaks. But here's what I have found. Okay. In the last 20 years, we've had 15 running backs finish as RB1. Okay. 3 of the 5 that repeated, out of those, 5 have had more than one RB1 season. And every single time in those 5 seasons, the only other RB1 season they had was the next season. So if Jonathan Taylor is going to finish his RB1 ever again, it's going to be this next season. Okay.
Interesting.
However, the average, okay, so if you finish as RB1 in any season, okay, the average out of all 15, 0.67 finishes inside the top 5 the rest of their career.
Really?
And so,
inside the top what?
Inside the top 5.
Top 5, okay. That makes sense.
And so inside the top 10, 0.8 is the average number of seasons that they finish inside the top 10.
Wow.
Now that number actually does go down because that top 10 and top 5 includes those 5 running backs that also finished inside the top 5 because they finished as RB1 again. Okay. So on average, out of those 15 running backs, you get one more season inside the top 20. And that list includes, this is everyone that's finished as RB1 since 2002. Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry hasn't finished inside the top 10 since he had his RB1 season. Christian McCaffrey hasn't finished inside the top 20 since 2019 when he had his RB1 season. Todd Gurley was the RB1 in 2018, and then, that was kind of it. He finished inside the top 20 one more time. David Johnson had one more top 5 season after his 2016 finish. 3 of those 5 running backs that had more than one RB1 season were LaDainian Tomlinson, Sean Alexander, and Priest Holmes. So years ago. We've only seen Todd Gurley and Jamal Charles do that. So the thing I'm taking away from this is in Dynasty, I'm selling Jonathan Taylor. I love the talent. Historically speaking, these players get hurt. It's a fragile position. And I actually think that this offense is going to take a massive step backward. I don't think Matt Ryan's an upgrade from Carson Wentz. I've said that numerous times. I don't think Matt Ryan can stretch the field like he has in the past. When you look at Matt Ryan, historically speaking, his points per game have declined each of the last 3 seasons. He had 17.8 points per game in 2019 where he finished QB 11, dropped to 17.5 points, QB 12 finish in 2020, and the last season drops all the way to 13.1, finishing QB 19. The man's not the same person he was before. You go back to 2018. So that's really when the slippage started. He was averaging 22.1 points per game that season. He's declined. He's just not the same player he was.
2018 when he finished QB2.
QB2, yes.
Yep. So I want to drop a couple things on you real quick.
Yeah.
Because we just had a Colts episode, so I have a little bit of background info on Matt Ryan this year. So this year, Matt Ryan, a couple stats that intrigued me. He targeted the running backs in his offense, so that was Patterson and Davis, 22.5%.
Yep.
I think I look at that as a plus for Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor.
Nyheim Hines.
So he also had the third best deep ball accuracy percentage. So 47.8% of the time he was completing a pass deep, which is third best in the league. Pressured, he was completing 53.8% of his passes, fourth best in the league. And he was plagued by his team dropping balls. So his team had 33 drops last year. Okay. So I'm going to pitch this real quick because I know you have a lot of good points. Matt Ryan is kind of aging out. He's not looking like the old Matt Ryan. I'm going to pitch this. He doesn't have to go, all the way downfield anymore. He's got Michael Pittman. He's got Alec Pierce. He can change it up in the middle with either one of those guys. He's got good tight ends. He's got big tight ends. I won't say good tight ends, but he's got big targets at tight end. And he's got two talented running backs. If anything, he's got the most talent around him since the Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley year.
You can say that, sure. However, Jonathan Taylor's we just used Jonathan Taylor's RB1 season. So I'm using this as a purely statistical analysis. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or act like I know anything more than you, but statistically, the odds are not in his favor to finish top 1 or even inside the top 10. Because going back to those stats, Jonathan Taylor has a 25% chance to finish as RB1 ever again, and a 50% chance of ever finishing in the top 5 the rest of his career. Okay. More likely, he's probably going to get injured because he just was used so much last season. It's not something I want to say, but that's just where the statistics are in this whole thing.
Well, and the talking point is also he was heavily used at Wisconsin.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's face it. If he gets hurt, do we really think Matt Ryan's going to carry this offense? Because your argument, no offense, is kind of like Jonathan Taylor's going to carry the load here again because he's the best player they have. Without Jonathan Taylor, I don't know if you can really develop an offense and execute 10 to 15-yard passes and dink and dunk your way down the field.
Yeah. And listen, that's a fair enough argument. I will just say that you can't just always think that, obviously the statistics tell you a good amount, but Jonathan Taylor hit his peak year, his RB1 year, at a very young age. So there's a very good chance that he could repeat still because
do you know who else was RB1 at the age of 23?
Yeah, Christian McCaffrey.
Nope.
Who?
Devontae Freeman, actually. Only had one more finish inside the top 10.
How old was Christian McCaffrey when he was RB1?
He was also 23.
So, Christian McCaffrey.
He's also never finished inside the top 20 either. He's been hurt.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of those things where, we don't want to predict injuries. We want to kind of look at, and it's two sides, right? You're being a little bit of the more pessimistic side. I'm being more the optimistic side. It's great because, you're looking at, these guys, the trend seems to be bucked by the second season of them going, or the following year of their RB1, most likely due to injuries.
Yeah. But not only that, I mean, I found the numbers were just kind of staggering. Like, it really develops. My theory had become, as of 2 seasons ago, whenever anyone finishes at the top of their position, I normally sell. The biggest mistake I've had with that was selling Josh Allen because he went wire to wire again. Historically speaking, I haven't done receivers, but I bet you it's very fickle.
So my question, and here's something for us to really look up. How many times has somebody been, because Adrian Peterson was RB1 for like 3 years in a row, not actual RB1. Like, I'm starting out like ADP RB1. Like,
Yeah.
taken off the board, maybe like 2-3 years in a row. How many top 5 finishes did he have in that?
How
That's
many
what
top 5 finishes did Adrian Peterson have?
when he was ADP number 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to know
So,
because
yeah.
obviously when you're ADP number 1, there's a heavy burden of this guy's got to hit, right? And hitting would be obviously like top 5.
Yeah, so from 2007 to 2010, he was top 5, or he was RB4, RB4, RB2, RB2, RB7 in 2011, RB8 in 2012. He was top 10 every year from 2007 through 2013. The indicator is really the RB1 finish because it means you're being utilized way too much. You look at a guy like Alvin Kamara, similar situation, never finished as the RB1, but he
Mhm.
finished his damn high every single season, which is great for dynasty. Like it's like a death pill. So like the guy I'm looking at that I thought had finished as RB1 but didn't was actually Saquon Barkley. Finished as RB2. I love him having a rebound this season.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's some interesting stuff. Obviously we got to follow up on that during the season because that's something that could really be detrimental to Jonathan Taylor owners this year.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I actually do have him, and I'm actively trying to get rid of him for a good price. But I actually think that now is a great time to sell him.
Oh, you sell him all the way high. I would
Oh,
say
absolutely.
selling points for him are obviously that he's going into his 3rd season. So
He's only 20. Yeah, he's going to be 24, I think, or
yeah.
23.
So they say the peak years are about 26. So you sell him that he's going to be great for the next 2 years.
I never buy the peak years. I look at the usage, and he was just him and Zeke were just run into the ground.
Yeah, and
McCa-
that's another guy to look up. Zeke's usage.
yeah, McCaffrey is the most interesting one because I would have thought that he'd rebound, but statistically, it's just not on his. It's legitimately not on his. It's just not there. So like Christian McCaffrey was RB15 his rookie season, RB3, and then he became the RB1, and then the next 2 seasons RB51, RB44.
Yeah, but how did his averages match up to the rest of the field for the games that he played?
For the points per game average,
I
let's see.
guarantee you, the year after his RB1, he was averaging close to 30 points a game.
He
Okay.
2020 he was the RB1 on a points per game basis. This last season was RB12.
Okay. What about the 2020 year, the year after his
Yeah,
RB1?
he was RB 2020 he was RB1 on a points per game basis.
Okay. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, obviously he hit a rough patch of injuries, but the production was still there if he was on the field.
Yeah, so
Um,
again, it's going to come down to injury with Jonathan Taylor. So I think
yeah.
more likely. So the way I see that Indianapolis unfolding, we've already gotten the indicators from the coach too. I really do believe that I'm taking Reich at his word. Last season, okay, he told us that Jonathan Taylor was going to be the bell cow back. He told us that in August. I wrote an article on Team Rise or Fall saying why he was my RB1 last season. He's told us that he's going to get Naheem Hines more involved, which jives with the playing style of Matt Ryan. So I
Yeah.
think either we're going to see an injury to Jonathan Taylor, which I don't want to see because I never want to wish that on anyone, or we're going to see Naheem Hines carve out a more than decent role in this offense and become a value in almost everyone's sleeper drafts, or like what do you call them, best ball drafts.
Yeah. I mean, I would take Naheem Hines in a best ball draft, especially at where he's at right now. So that's definitely something to look into. Um, let's move on to our next one, just for the sake of time. So we got the Titans next. So obviously we have Robert Woods coming in, Austin Hooper coming in. You minus AJ Brown, Julio Jones. You get Treylon Burks, Roger McCreary,
Malik
Malik Willis,
Willis.
Hassan Haskins, your boy Malik Willis.
You're a former QB1, right?
Oh. That isn't because of that. That's trying
How
to
have
figure
you?
out this name.
How have you not?
Zimu Okowo. I'm sorry. I just
Isn't it
can't.
a Conwo? I don't
Okon,
know.
Okono.
He doesn't listen to the show, so thankfully he won't be offended.
So talk to me first about Derrick Henry. How are you feeling about Derrick Henry right now? Obviously, he's still valued, at least in redraft, as a top 5 running back. Last year, with only 8 games, he finished running back 14. He was astonishingly still a running back freaking one for,
he pulled a
let's
Christian
see.
McCaffrey. He was RB1 on a points per game basis last season.
He was top 5, get this, for 13 weeks. So 5 weeks after he went down, he was still top 5.
He was, it was insane. But he got hurt because he was used way too much. And unfortunately, he looked like crap in that playoff game. So it'll be interesting to see. I think,
well, to be fair, he came back from a broken foot on the lowest timeline. And, I don't care. I've had a broken foot in sports. When you come back, I don't care who you are, super athlete or not. It's fucking hard to get everything back in control. Like, I remember trying to walk. It was, I got made fun of quite a bit by my wife.
I don't blame you. And, when I say these stats about injuries and stuff, it's not to degrade these players. This position is just, they need to be paid more. I mean, quite honestly, they get just trashed on. I mean, these players have these elite seasons and then they just get thrown to the side. So I don't know how to fix that from an NFL standard, but it's kind of ridiculous. I just don't see Derrick Henry finishing as RB1 again. I think he might finish top 20, but one of those social media engagement farming things that said who's not going to make the playoffs this season that made him last year, and to me it's got to be the Titans. I mean, you crapped the bed when you traded away your best player for Treylon Burks, who can't even get on the field in training camp, or not training, whatever, OTAs, not even training camp. So that's just a major red flag. I liked Robert Woods, I still do, but Robert Woods is not a number 1, and right now I feel like he's being asked to be number 1 in this offense, and I think we've seen the mirage kind of fade off of Tannehill. Yeah, sorry, drawing blanks tonight.
No, you're good.
So yeah, I'm totally out on this offense. I don't really want to own anyone. I have an offer for Woods sitting in my inbox I got yesterday. I just haven't had a chance to look at it. I didn't love the players I was getting, but I'd for sure be selling on the hype of Robert Woods right now.
So here's my thing. I would hold Robert Woods for a couple weeks because I think that he is going to have kind of a mini resurgence that won't last the entire season. But I think it will last long enough. What's up?
He's going to be the Emmanuel Sanders of the Titans.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think he's going to be working a lot out of the slot, and I think he's going to be getting targeted heavy. And I think if your league is a PPR league, I think he's going to be somebody you want to hold for maybe the first 6 weeks and then sell off. Be like, hey, this is a freaking legit talent right here. This is a guy who's going to win you a championship. Sell it like that and get the most out of that. Because right now you're selling Robert Woods at the name value with a team that is notorious for being run first. And it's you can go with that and maybe you'll get some value out of that. Maybe you'll get a couple players in a second round pick. But I think if you really were to hold Robert Woods for a little bit, let him kind of recoup, let him break out again, and then sold him, you could possibly get, a 2021 or 2023 first and maybe a player for him.
So when you are friends, do you have any accounting friends that are accountants?
I guess you. I have one other accounting friend.
Does he suffer from FOMO like I do?
No, she really doesn't.
She doesn't? Okay. I tend to believe in FOMO and Dynasty like no other. So generally when I get a feeling that I think a player is going to finish below expectations, I like to sell them today versus, I don't think you're wrong. Yeah. I don't want to risk a second today to get a fourth tomorrow. Because if Robert Woods comes out and just craps the bed, right? You're not going to get much for him, I feel like.
No, and that's an argument in itself. That's the flip side of it. He could totally, like you said, he could pull a Julio Jones easily and miss most of the year. And it would just be an absolute turd in the punch bowl for the Titans.
Yeah, they seem to do that quite a bit too with the receiving position. I mean, like, uh, you got to give Mike Vrabel a lot of credit because this team hasn't been the most talented the last couple seasons.
Nope.
And you want to make fun of the Eagles for all their woes, at the wide receiver position. This team literally got the position right finally. And then they were just like way too cheap to just sign their own guy. They're like, let's just go draft Traylon Burks, who we know nothing about.
Yep.
I mean, did they even? I mean, my question is, and I hate to take up time on the subject, but like,
No.
I almost wonder how heavily they scouted this dude. Like, I watched him and I was like, this dude is kind of like a one-trick pony, and I did not love him coming out of the draft.
Yeah. I mean, listen, when I look at Treylon Burks and when you actually put his, combine stats out there, it was not very impressive. I think they traded AJ Brown for a rookie year AJ Brown, and that's kind of like, why would you downgrade yourself like that? You know what I mean?
Especially when you're trying to win a Super Bowl. Like, this window's
Yeah.
closing. This window's closing. I mean, they drafted Malik Willis, so they aren't clearly in love with Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry's not getting any younger.
No. And Derrick Henry is the best thing they've had for a long time.
I'm surprised they didn't trade him.
Since the Eddie George, Air McNary years, Derrick Henry is the best thing they've had.
If they're playing Moneyball, I just gave you the stats for RB1s. What are they doing?
Yeah.
They're doing Moneyball wrong. They're just doing Moneyball wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and shit, to be honest with you, I don't understand what the Titans are really doing. Like you said, like, why go after somebody who is unproven when you have somebody who's locked, loaded, and ready to go for the next 5 to 10 years?
They should have honestly. I mean, it's easy for us to say this now, but if there was even an inkling that Marquise Brown was available,
yes,
that's the guy you get. I don't,
yes.
because you know damn well that you could have easily have traded AJ Brown for Marquise Brown plus based on the production. I mean, and it would have been a trade that actually benefited both teams, but they're just both in the AFC, so maybe that's what derailed that.
Yeah, I think Baltimore still has sour feelings from that AFC divisional game. Lamar Jackson's big year goes to shambles because of Derrick Henry.
Well, it's true. They need to get over themselves, I guess. It's funny. I've seen this division just has like an owner that trades away their quarterback because he got COVID and missed the playoffs, and Carson Wentz.
Yep.
And we got the Jaguars. This might actually be the worst division in the AFC, hands down.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the NFC East, it might actually be the worst division in football, period. I mean, there is in the NFC East, you can at least say everybody plays each other really hard. Here, I literally tell people, I'm like, all right, so you're the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts. You can almost chalk up 4 wins.
Yeah. But even then, like, the Jaguars beat the Colts last year. So, like, it's just –
yeah.
I really think people are way too high on the Colts this season. If you take anything away from this episode, I think that the Colts are could also miss the playoffs.
And to be fair, I actually really like the Colts this year. I'm semi off on the Titans. I think the Colts can easily take this division. I don't think they can win a playoff game, though.
As much as you'll laugh, Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl. I think the Jaguars, if you're taking long odds on something, the Jaguars make the most sense in this division. Quite honestly, they have a good coach, they have a quarterback, they have a tight end. I mean, this division's up for grabs. I really think it's a crapshoot of who can win it. And when it's a crapshoot like that, and you're getting really good odds, I think you could really honestly make the case for taking the Jacksonville Jaguars.
So you're saying Doug Peterson's going to pull a Chip Kelly, and out of nowhere, one of the worst teams in the division is suddenly going to become the best team.
I've seen the Bills make the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor as their quarterback. That team had no business making the playoffs.
Fair enough. I will say this, though. I think this division is kind of top heavy with the Colts and the Titans. The Jaguars.
The Colts did lose to the Jaguars.
And we have talked about that. You did make an interesting case for Carson Wentz having COVID. I will just say this: everybody loses to everybody eventually. You're going to lose to the worst team in your division eventually. It's all about what you do before that and what you do after that. For the Colts, they didn't win any of the games against the Titans. They dropped both of. I mean, listen, Derrick Henry got injured in that game against the Colts. He only had 40 yards on a broken foot, and the Colts still couldn't close that game out.
Yeah, but man, you also have to take into account though that like the Colts just everyone thinks Matt Ryan is going to come in and be much better than Carson Wentz. I don't think that's the case by any stretch. I really don't. Like, I can't think of anything that Matt Ryan does today that Carson Wentz doesn't. I mean, Matt Ryan wasn't even a superstar.
I can think of one thing that Matt Ryan does better than Carson Wentz. I'll just tell you this. He's better under pressure.
Okay. Well, just so you know, they actually have that Carson Wentz through their careers. Carson Wentz has a lower interception percentage based on his attempts than Matt Ryan. Just throwing that out there.
Well, I mean, here's also a thing. Matt Ryan does the veteran rule and actually uses his running backs as, targets.
And he did, but Wentz did that last year, though.
Jonathan Taylor, not nearly as much as Matt Ryan would. I mean, when you have the best player on the field is Jonathan Taylor and you're not feeding him as much as you could have to be winning games.
But I mean, you make a compelling case. I just think that when I need to go look through the ADOT stats. I bet you that Matt Ryan's ADOT is freaking atrocious, and I think it's going to get worse. I just think when you limit yourself so much as an offense, and then you try and be so run heavy, they're going to stack the line of scrimmage because they have no deep threat. And Matt Ryan
remember what his offense was last year. His offense was Kyle Pitts, Cordero Patterson.
But even when he had Ridley, they weren't elite. Ridley was talked about last season as being the wide receiver one. Even when he played, he didn't even finish. He never once even broached that topic on a game basis. So like, I'm completely out on them. I think they are such a mirage this offseason because everyone thinks Carson Wentz is so bad that they think that Matt Ryan's going to put them over the top. And I think it's going to go the opposite way. I really do.
See, I agree with you in a lot of aspects. I think that the difference between Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz is non-existent. I think the one thing, like I said, that will put Matt Ryan over Carson Wentz is he has got a little bit more up there and a little bit more in the confidence build because Carson Wentz has been thrown around the league now. I mean, this is his third team in 3 years. He's been told he's a cancer in the locker room. He's been told this is his last chance. Matt Ryan has this confidence built up. He's been an MVP. He knows how to use every single weapon of his offense. And give the man fucking some credit. He had Calvin Ridley quit on him last year.
I mean, I'd quit on him, but I would never quit. But yeah, I mean,
listen, he had Kyle Pitts and a fucking a semi-retired special teams guy in Cordero Patterson.
He had Cordero Patterson. I mean, don't forget
Mike Davis. Mike Davis is the one I'm forgetting.
He had Todd Gurley the year before, man.
Oh,
RB1 Todd Gurley.
You know what? Maybe that's the secret. Todd Gurley needs to come back because he was QB12 when Todd Gurley was there.
He was QB12 when Todd Gurley was there. Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I think this is, I'm telling you, if you're taking long odds and you want to just take something, Jaguars make a lot of sense to me this season. We have seen teams go from worst to first pretty often. So this is the division I think it can happen.
I'd love to see those odds in Vegas because if it's like, 2,000 to 1, I'll put $100 on it. Why not? Walk out. Yeah. Some good money after that one. All right, guys. It was another great episode. I do want to give a quick shout out to SeatGeek, our main sponsor of this episode. You can save $20 on your first purchase with SeatGeek. All you have to do is use the promo code Dynasty Brews. That's right. It is concert season. We are looking at baseball season. Sporting events are coming around the corner. You want to get those football tickets early before they go up in jacked prices. Go to SeatGeek right now and you save $20 on your first purchase with the promo code Dynasty Brews. Justin, another great episode, even though it was, the AFC South.
Yeah,
You
I think
know,
we I think we had a lot of good content. Actually, I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's always a good conversation when we get on here because, like I said, sometimes we can be opposing forces, but it makes for
Yeah.
great YouTube content, man. It really does. And as usual, you can catch us on YouTube. You can catch us up on Belly Up TV on Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. You can catch us on Twitter, and even once in a while, you can catch us on Facebook. Next week, we are going to be doing the NFC South, and hopefully, we'll be bringing on a special guest for you guys. Justin, do you have anything to say before we go?
No, just keep it frosty, and I appreciate everyone that tunes in. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the conversation.
Hell yeah. Keep it frosty, everyone. Have a good night, and have a great weekend.